An industrial kitchen, fluorescent light, steam in the air. In front of me, a mountain of potatoes, 1,000 of them. My job is very simple. Peel every single one. Every single potato. After a few hours, my fingers hurt. After a few days, my back aches, and in between, a thought appears. This will never end. I grew up in socialist East Germany, a country where opportunities to realize one's dreams was limited, especially for young people. Opportunities were rare, and if you wanted to do something different, you definitely had to find the gaps in the system. Searching for those gaps took a lot of optimism. But I was ready for that. I had that optimism. And I was very lucky because I was surrounded by people like my parents, my teachers, and my friends, who were all those gap seekers. My gap was travel, hitchhiking to the Black Sea with my friends, to Bulgaria, and really to look what is behind the borders that shaped my daily life. But wanting was not enough. So I needed a way. And at that time, a legal and realistic way for a 15-year-old was to do this kitchen job. So I accepted that mountain. I started to peel the potatoes. Every one was progress. It showed my power. And it was a very small way of saying, I will never allow anyone to define the limits of my world. And I will take every advantage and every opportunity to expand my possibilities. When I was 16, I traveled to Bulgaria. And then I knew that even in those rigid systems, there is space. You are not given that space, but you really have to find it. When I was 18, the wall fell down. A system that seemed immovable dissolved. I did embrace my freedom. I traveled extensively. I studied in Minsk, in Canterbury, in the US, and in Taiwan. Freedom was my way of life. 20 years ago, I faced the next potato mountain. Again, I had to search for those gaps in the system. And you might laugh, but it happened when I started working in life science and venture financing. There, I was surrounded by brilliant minds, groundbreaking research, and great young companies. But often I heard, is this the right time? Is this okay? Maybe later. According to the OECD, last year, $400 billion were invested into young companies. But still, we are having so many life sciences, biotech and medtech companies that are seeking financing and can't find it. Companies where we need the products badly. We are talking about cancer research. We are talking about sepsis therapies. We are talking about prevention of heart attacks and solutions for many incurable diseases like COPD. For someone that suffers from COPD, breathing is a hard work. And every morning starts with the calculation. How many steps can I walk today? How many breaths before my lungs close? For us, breathing is normally For them, breathing is hard work, one breath at a time. When we were looking into investing in a new therapy for COPD, someone said, is the market big enough? This will take a long time, maybe later. But for someone where breathing is life pending, later is not an option. If you take Oliver, 59 years old, 1.70 meters tall, suffering from severe COPD. When he went into a hospital for his last stay, he could not eat, he could not talk. He weighed 35 kilograms and this equals a meager BMI of 12. They gave him about a month. When they applied that new therapy that we had discussed, they were able to give his life back. They were able to bring him back to his family. So instead of slowly dying in hospital, he was able to go back to his loved ones. Now he can talk again, he eats, and he is even able to walk up to 2 kilometers with his walker. He got his life back. So when we are investing, I often hear, is the market big enough? Is this the right thing? Maybe later. For people suffering from COPD, later is certainly not an option. Science is moving. Capital often hesitates. Disease does not wait, and the future is impatient. So again, the potato principle applies, and again we had to move a mountain. I thought, how can I do this? What can I do to change this? In 2024, I first time traveled to Riyadh. I was very curious to visit LEAP. With 200,000 visitors, one of the largest technology conferences in the world. I was unprepared of what I saw and what I experienced. Not only very big stages, not only announcements of mega deals, but one collective will to transform. One great ambition to become a leading industrial nation with a major focus on biotechnology. No waiting, no someday, but now. What makes me crazy is that I see here in our country so many great innovative companies, but still they are lacking financing. They are lacking growth finance. They either struggle or fail. So again, I ask myself the question, what can I do? How can Saxony find bridges? How can we find synergies? I talked to the Ministry of Investment in Riyadh, and when the Minister of Investment visited Berlin in September 24, I made sure that Saxonian biotech companies had a seat at that table. I was told the minister has only time on Sunday. I smiled and said, Saxonian entrepreneurs travel on Sundays too. So 2 hours of discussion became 5. And in November 24, I was able to take 5 biotech teams from Saxony to Riyadh. Agreements were signed and they are now being brought to life. Since then, I have been traveled more than 15 times to Riyadh. I am not longer a visitor, but I am a trusted partner, and I can help to build the first industrial and biotech growth fund in Saudi Arabia. I did not wait for the systems to connect themselves. I saw an opportunity and I made things happen. But there are still many life science companies that are lacking financing. And unfortunately, we take them too often to other continents because access to finance is easier there. Just recently, one of the Saxonian ministries asked me, how many biotech companies are currently seeking financing? And I said 10, because I had the top of my head. And that was only the tip of the iceberg. Our system has a systemic flaw. Our system takes way too long and forever. Our system has a movement problem. That's when we started to build a fund platform in Leipzig, to establish financing structures. And again, I can say, we should not always ask, why does the system not work? We need to find a way to move this mountain by peeling the first potato. It happens like this, one step. Sometimes one molecule, one trial, one investment decision. Rigid systems. Rigid systems. We do not have to leave them physically, but we have to leave them mentally when we take responsibility. And again, a mountain of potatoes seems impossible until we take the first one, the second, and the third. Major change never happens in one heroic moment, but it takes many small, consistent steps. The future is certainly not a gift. It is not organized for us. And it doesn't belong to any region. It belongs to those who begin. When I was in that kitchen at 15, I did not see that mountain disappear at once. I certainly didn't know how I would feel after peeling all these thousands of potatoes. But I did know one thing. If I wanted to move, I had to begin. Not when the system changed. Not when conditions improved, and certainly not when somebody allowed it, but right there and then. Mountains do not disappear if we criticize them. They shrink if we start peeling. So, when you go back to your office, your ministry, your company, ask yourself the question, what is my potato? And how can I start peeling now?